Alexis Nunes alongside Gab Marcotti just outside the Doha Convention Center where the World Cup draw has finally taken place. Gab, we've got a lot of groups to get through. Let's start off with Group A for your reaction. That's where you'll find the host country, Qatar, up against Ecuador, Senegal, and the Netherlands. How would the host country feel about this?
Well, you know what? You look to history, right? And if memory serves me correctly, because I'm old, I remember that other than South Africa in 2010, every single group winner has always advanced to the group stage, even Russia. Wonder how they did that in 2018. So you wonder if there is some group stage kind of stardust, the familiarity with the stadiums and whatever. I don't think it's going to be wild and crazy home crowds, but it is a tough group. Senegal, legit African Cup of Nations champions. Not just a talented team, a mentally tough team. They showed that in beating Egypt again in the World Cup playoffs. And there, of course, so much talent that side. Holland revitalized under Louis van Gaal, a lot of individual match winners, people like that. So you look at this, and I think it's uphill for Qatar. And, let's not forget Ecuador, right?
Yeah.
There you go. They were third for most of CONMEBOL qualifying. Then later, I think they slipped to fourth. But they're also a tough, battle-hardened team. So I actually think this is one of those groups where any one of those three could finish second.
I have my eye on Senegal for this World Cup. I really do. I hope that they do get a nice run. Group B now. This is a juicy group, isn't it? Because that's where you'll find England as well as the USA, plus Iran and either Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine. That has yet to be decided. But, Gab, is this one of the more spicy groups?
I mean, it is and it isn't. Look, I think at some point we need to treat England like grown-ups because they showed us they are grown-ups. They are deep. They are talented. They reached the World Cup final last time. The World Cup semifinal last time. They reached the Euro final, of course, against Italy. That's right, and lost on penalties.
He had to throw
but
that in.
What struck me, Alexis, was that in both games it felt to me as if England were holding back a little, as if maybe by being a little more expansive they could have done more. For me, the big question is, has Gareth Southgate learned his lesson? If you unleash this, if you find a way of playing that where you take the game to the opposition rather than being reactive, I think England can go really, really far in the World Cup, possibly even win it. So for me, they are the clear favorites of the group. The U.S., a lot of, obviously, they have some big names, maybe who aren't decisive at club level, possibly because they play for big teams like Christian Pulisic or because they've been injured like Gio Reyna. But I would expect them on the back of qualifying. For me, they are the second place team in this group on paper. Although, again, England versus the USA, third game, the ghost of Joe Gaetjens. You wonder about that. Could there be a twist at the end? In terms of Iran, I don't think this Iran side are on a par with past Iran sides. They did do well in qualifying, obviously. But if you look top to bottom, you don't necessarily have the individuals that you expected. A lot's going to depend. Can Serdar Azmoun show up and be the difference maker up front? And
I suppose the final one to come in, Wales, Scotland, Ukraine, which one of those three probably would the others kind of not want to come in?
I hate to say it, I don't think anybody wants Ukraine at this World Cup because I think the neutrals, the environment, after what they've been through, I think every neutral is going to be backing Ukraine if they go to the World Cup. Tell you what, they don't fancy, England's not going to fancy the other two either. Scotland, because whatever, it's the old enemy. We saw it at the Euros again. They give you a game, stuff happens. And Wales.
With a firing Gareth Bale.
With Gareth Bale, if he shows up. I presumably he will play some more club games every now and then because his contract at Madrid's up. But he showed he can carry this team on his shoulder. He's done it before.
All right, well, let's move on to Group C now. Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. I find that this is one of the harder groups, at least to call already for me. What do you think?
Oh, wow. I feel the opposite.
Really?
I feel Argentina walk it.
Well, Argentina, yes, but who of the next three?
The next three, different issue, of course, because it's...
Mexico or Poland is where I'm seeing the thing. I feel like Poland, we tend to rely on Robert Lewandowski. Ale Moreno recently said that we overly rely on him and then that he makes Poland look better than they really are. And Mexico's always Mexico, isn't it?
Meaning what? Underachieving?
No, Gab.
I mean, I say this because, Mexico for me aren't as big as the sum of their parts. We know Tata Martino has been obviously under pressure just because of the way the World Cup qualifying went. They got there. It's 6 months' time. I think it's going to be, on paper it is Mexico or Poland. What I would say about Lewandowski, I agree with you. Poland also don't necessarily perform as well as the talent says that they should. I think a lot depends, can they find a partner for him? When we saw Lewandowski with Milik, I think if he's got somebody with him then it makes a big difference. Because behind they've got Piotr Zielinski. He will deliver the service. He'll make sure. But, it's one thing leading the line on your own for Bayern Munich when you've got those wingers putting balls in all the time, when you got Thomas Muller running around like a maniac behind you. It's another thing doing it for Poland, in my opinion. And Saudi Arabia, this is, again, I think they won their Asian qualifying group. I think they only lost once. This is not a vintage Saudi Arabia team, I think, by any stretch. They won their first World Cup game, obviously, in Russia back in 2018, but I don't see this carrying over.
Group D now, that's where you'll find the defending champions France with either Australia, Peru, or the UAE, Denmark and Tunisia. France surely would be happy with this.
Yeah, again, I think France are going to be the overwhelming favorites. For me, one of the questions is, I kind of feel Didier Deschamps played sort of pretty basic defend and counter, which in some ways is a bit heartbreaking because you've got so much talent. He's tried to be more expansive. It'll be curious to see if he does that. Whatever happens, I think France are as I see it, they're going to walk this group.
Yeah.
Tunisia, they're another team that nobody really believes in them, but they did get out of the group stage in the AFCON, and obviously they won their playoff, which I think few people had them doing that. For me, on paper, again, and I say this on paper, Tunisians don't get angry. Tunisia, possibly one of the weakest teams at the World Cup, which of course leaves the other two in this group. And when we're looking at
Denmark,
we got Denmark and we have
Australia, Peru, or the UAE to come in.
The cluster mess. All right, obviously Denmark, Euro semifinalists. Yeah. Emotional high. Yeah. That's the other great feel-good story. Christian Eriksen said that his dream was going to be returning to this World Cup.
Yep.
I think Denmark are probably best placed to finish second in this group. Mm-hmm. The one wild card is I think Peru are substantially better than UAE and Australia. Australia is not a great generation. Remember, they only finished third in the, which is why they had to go through this playoff with UAE. UAE finishing they also finished third, obviously, but they even with fewer points. If Gareca gets them there, then you don't know. Then you don't know what Peru can put together. But for me, again, France and Denmark going through.
I love me some Peru. Group E now, Spain, the 2010 champions, New Zealand or Costa Rica, Germany and Japan. Another spicy-looking group, I think, Gab.
There you go. Spain against Germany, obviously on paper, the big one. Probably the biggest match of the group stages. Yeah. Again, on paper, in terms of star power, whatever else. Hansi Flick's been on a roll since taking over from Jogi Löw. Luis Enrique, I think, is brilliant. With Spain, what I would say, even though, while I think maybe they play the best football of any club side in the world right now, possibly alongside Brazil, it's been an issue, is turning those chances into goals. Now, I'm an XG guy, I'm a performance guy, so I think, hey, that's fine, the goals will come. But in a group stage tournament, you have small margins of error, right? If they don't come, you can go out. And I also wonder, is there an alternative to Alvaro Morata? Do they need an alternative to Alvaro Morata? So I think a lot of questions there, but let's face it, those two teams are going to finish first and second. I think Japan have individuals. They can make life very difficult for you. Yep. They have progressed, but Spain and Germany, a bridge too far. And the other group was
either New Zealand or Costa Rica.
Okay. I would love it if the All-Whites made it. No disrespect to Costa Rica. I have an All-White shirt at home. Aww. But I think realistically, both these teams are along. Costa Rica likely to make it. And I think in this group, again, on paper, I think they're along for the ride.
Group F now, Belgium, Canada, Morocco, Croatia. Canada at a World Cup for the first time in my lifetime. That tells you either how old or how young I am. How would the Canadians feel? Because there's a nice high-end momentum that they're riding with now. So how would they feel about this group?
I think they'll feel okay about the group, to be honest.
I mean, they've got two seasoned countries to go up against in terms of World Cups, in terms of Belgium and Croatia especially, even though, of course, we know Croatia.
They do. A lot of it, though, is about matchups, right?
Yeah.
So in Croatia, you have a team that's older, a team that I think is a little bit slower. Remember, you unleash the Jonathan David on them. Not to mention Alphonso Davies. Hopefully he'll be back for this World Cup.
And that pace.
I think they can surprise a few people. Is it going to be enough to get past Croatia? Frankly, I'm not sure. Belgium,
is it their time finally? I feel like we've been saying that for too long.
You're not allowed to say the term golden generation. No. Right? That's banned here. But, let's face it. Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, one guy setting up the other, Yuri Tielemans, Thibaut Courtois. I think those are four people who can win games individually on your own, right? So for me, Belgium, clear favorites. I think it's actually pretty tight between Croatia and Canada, and we also have Morocco, actually. I think it's a three-way toss-up here, to be honest.
Ooh.
Morocco won every game in qualifying. They sailed through with relative ease in the playoffs as well. I think they won one, drew one. This is a good team. They have good individuals. They have depth. You know, they have Ashraf Hakimi inventing things. I think better for Morocco than for Paris Saint-Germain this season, and he's been pretty good for Paris Saint-Germain, despite the critics. So for me, yeah, this is a toss-up for second place in the group.
Couldn't wait to get to Group G, though, because that's where you'll find Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. Let's start with Brazil because they have some recent World Cup demons, I think, to exercise. Could this be their time, Gab? They're going in as number one in the world.
They just took over as number one in the world, of course, from Belgium. Look, I am Team Chichi. I think the man can do no wrong. I think he's done a tremendous job. They play like a club side. I've said this before. Neymar is not as important to them as he was before. He's a cherry on top. He is part of the group, an important part, but they have other options. It's not all about finding Neymar the way it was perhaps with some of these Brazil teams in the past.
They've got an exciting Vini Jr.
You've got Vinicius Jr., you've got Richarlison, you've got, you know,
some good goalkeepers.
Top to bottom, I think you're pretty sorted. Yeah. You know, probably the best reserve keeper in the world as well. Whichever one of those two ends up being the reserve keeper. So they're pretty good. I think Serbia can spring some surprises as well. I thought they were disappointing at the Euros. I am waiting for them to come together. I tell you what, though, they're going to have a tough time. Switzerland knocked out Italy. You might have heard about that. But Switzerland have people who can surprise you. You know, Okafor, we've seen little of him. You chuck him in there, he can be a game changer. Switzerland have a ton of experience as well. I think this is going to be extremely, extremely tight. And the fourth team was
Cameroon.
Cameroon are an interesting one to me because obviously the way they got to the World Cup, you know, left some people, wow, you know, indomitable lines. For those who don't know, it's incredible. They're playing Algeria. It's Algeria away. Algeria wins the first leg 1-0, but they have that stardust. Right? They score. Like Maxime Choupo-Moting, the man who scores big goals, right? And from the end, in extra time, Algeria score, and you figure, all right, it's done. It's over. And then the 4th minute of injury time, they get the winner, and they win because of the away goals room. That's a little bit of stardust. That's a little bit of magic. And that always helps, I think, going into World Cups.
And final group now, Group H, Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea.
All right, again, I find this really interesting. I cannot imagine Cristiano out of the group stages. I still don't know what to think of Fernando Santos, about whether he can make Portugal greater than some of his parts, about the way these players fit together. But so much talent. In some ways, you can do no wrong. Okay, so what? You got a 40-year-old center back or a 36-year-old? Doesn't matter. Ruben Diaz is near him. Diogo Costa is a tremendous goalkeeper. João Cancelo, and that's just at the back. And then imagine all the riches they have going forward.
Going forward is crazy.
So in some ways, you can get things wrong.
Amazing.
Yeah. So as long as he's not too conservative, which we've seen from him in the past, I think
unleash the fancy cars.
Unleash the fancy cars. Have players around Cristiano. He likes that.
He likes that. Ghana, Uruguay, South Korea. Any surprises there?
You know what? I think all three of these teams can qualify. Now, Uruguay, you know, since making this change, since saying goodbye to El Maestro Tavares, they've been on a rising up CONMEBOL. I love what they do in midfield with Torreira and Bentancur and Valverde. You can alternate Suarez and Cavani out of them. They're in the mix, but then I look at Korea, a bit up and down, but again, it's not just about Heung-min Son.
They have something in them.
Other weapons that can hurt you. And Ghana, man,
Ghana's always Ghana.
They went away to Nigeria. They got for that again.
There's that stardust again.
Stardust that we talk about. It's, you know, you don't want to talk about momentum because we're not kicking off for what, like another 6 or 7 months.
7 months, yeah.
But I think these things matter between now and then. You can get a lift in your preparation or whatever else. So again, for me, this is a tough group where it's difficult to say who's going to finish second.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.